Are you going to intro us?
Oh, are we on?
We're on.
Hey, welcome back to By Its Cover.
Hey.
This is Katie,
It's Jake.
and this is a podcast where we pick out books by their covers and read them and talk about them.
Yep.
What's the book today?
It's your book.
I know, but I want you to say it.
Oh my God. If you have a fucking sister, you know, okay? This is called Make Your Own Rules by Andrew Huang.
What does the cover look like?
If I were transported back to 1987 and purple and yellow were the most popular colors, it looks like that. So it's Make Your Own Rules, all caps, no lowercase. It's got purple on the top and it ombres or no, what's that called? Ombre. Ombres down to yellow. And orange is the ombre in between, sunset colors.
Okay.
It's got the author's name on the right side, and then it has a bunch of junk on the left side. Stories and hard-earned advice from a creator in the digital age.
Cool.
What's this book about, Katie?
It's about Andrew Huang and his life as a creator. And it's a little autobiographical, but it's tips and advice as a creator, like from experience, mixed in with like stories from his life. I feel like my mic is too loud. And I picked this book from the library not long after we started this podcast. And then I held on to it for a really, really long time before I read it. But I had been watching an Andrew Huang video. Like, he's a YouTuber I like to watch. And I saw a video where he said, oh, I wrote this book and buy the book. And then I went to the library and I was like, it was the first book I saw there. And so I picked it because I like Andrew Huang. And also it was so serendipitous that it was like right there in the library. But do you know who Andrew Huang is?
No.
You've never watched any of his videos?
No.
Okay, so he is one of my favorite YouTubers. And I started watching him back in probably 2020, like early pandemic, whenever we were all at home trying to cope. And I was doing a lot of music at that time. And he had a lot of like tutorials on, like music theory and stuff. And that's how I got into his channel. But he's known for making music from like everyday sounds. It's one of the things that he's known for. Would you like to know more?
Yes. Dear Katie, please tell me more about this book.
So he starts out talking about his childhood and how I think that one of his parents is Chinese, and I can't remember the ethnicity, nationality of his other parent. I can't remember, but he lives in Canada. He's a Canadian of Chinese descent. And he talked about how like the stereotype of Chinese parents is like the very like, you must do the absolute best that you can. And, your career path should be doctor, lawyer, like something like that. But his parents, luckily, were very supportive of his musical interests, which started as he was a child. He was interested in drawing and art and music. And he describes like a picture from his childhood where he was like a toddler or very young kid. And he was like drawing all over the floor or whatever. And his parents were totally supportive of this. And so mom would be playing music in the other room or something. And, it was just very supportive of that endeavor for him, which he was grateful for. I'm not going to talk through every part of his story, but one of my favorite things about Andrew Huang in general is just that, like, how he comes across as very like open to any sort of creativity. And I value that in a creator. I think it's really easy when you create to kind of self-edit as you're doing it. And that's like one of the biggest enemies of creating something is like your critic, your inner editor. Sometimes you don't even want to say the things because like if you're writing lyrics, sometimes you have to write bad lyrics in order to get to the better ones, but you don't even want to say them out loud, right? Because you feel silly. And every video I've watched, like everything I've learned about Andrew Huang is that he's very much like okay with whatever comes out, like he is very supportive of himself in that way and of other creators. And that came out really well in this book. So he talks about how he went to, when he was a teenager, he got really into music. And he says, I think that's when he decided like music was going to be the way to go instead of like drawing. So his interests kind of like were side by side, and then music kind of took over when he got, I think it was like a boombox or something that could record. And it could record like multiple layers, like 5 layers. And so then he got really into like recording sounds and recording himself and like weird noises and stuff and like trying to make songs with it. But he had 5 different layers to work with on this like boombox or something. Super cool. So he talks about that and how he got really into exploring not weird music, but obscure music. So things outside of popular music, like he would go to the library and find old recordings of something like that. Maybe that's the only thing where it existed, like he was in search of all of the most obscure, different kind of music. And some of it, he said, was very strange, but he got really into that. He ended up going to music school, and it sounded like he was kind of stifled by music school. Everything that he turned in music composition or whatever, he got a 75. It didn't matter what he did. And for his final project, he ended up just putting together some random shit, and he still got a 75. And so I don't think that he's convinced that he really got a great education out of that. Mm-hmm. But he learned some important things there. But while he was in college, he decided it was the beginning of the internet, kind of. Like not the beginning of the internet, but it was the beginning of like YouTube and like when those it was the age of salad fingers and
I like rusty spoons.
Right. What was the other? Homerunner.com?
Home Runner, yeah. The golden age of
the beginning of the internet, when there were some like weird, you would go to a site to find something, and you heard about that site. Yeah, Slap Monkey. There was like a John Williams website that had like a bunch of, it just played music from John Williams soundtracks.
Taking it aside for a second,
yeah,
that age of the internet was super cool.
It was.
Because you would actively go seek out other websites and stuff where content was being created and generated and posted. And it ended up being some really freaking weird niches.
Right.
Because it wasn't like YouTube that sort of
there's an algorithm.
Algorithmically tailors content to you. It was you going and seeking out things and being exposed to media that you traditionally wouldn't have been exposed to.
Or one of your friends told you about it and had you go find that thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love that about this early stage of the internet being used by creators. He decided while he was in college to just see what would happen if he sold his songwriting skills. So he made a website called Songs to Wear Pants To. And you could bid, kind of like eBay style, you could bid on, the opportunity to have Andrew write a song with your prompt.
Cool.
Okay. And he was really he didn't think that it would take off or anything, but he was really pleasantly surprised. People actually paid money for him to write obscure songs about their dog, or I just found one on my phone when I was searching before this, a list of songs to wear pants to. And there was one called Katie, thank you for letting me borrow your ukulele.
That's very fitting.
I know. And they would describe, the purchaser would describe what kind of style they would want. And so he learned how to make music in a lot of different styles by doing this. And it really took off. And I think that's initially how he got very popular, or at least known. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's a super cool piece of Andrew Huang history that he goes into in depth there. And I think it helped him build, I think that helped him build confidence as a creator, What else about this book? Oh, something really significant about Andrew Huang is that when he was 20, overnight, he lost a good deal of his hearing. And they've not figured out yet why, but he lost in both ears, a low bass hearing. And so he works in, like, in order to adapt to that, he had to work in, like, making sure to involve other people in the mixing and mastering if it was going to be made for somebody else. But it ended up helping him kind of, you know, he knows when music is just for him because it will sound different at the end because he can't hear those frequencies anymore. He talks about burnout. He was, you know, he got really into YouTube and like making YouTube videos, I think probably around the time that I found him. And he talks about like the intersection of business and creativity and how it's important, you know, as a creator, if you're going to be, you know, making money from this, that you're balancing like doing the business stuff and doing that and also managing like not getting burnt out as he did. So he talks about how he got through that burnout. And then he now, you know, he only accepts jobs that he wants to do. If there's any kind of reason that he feels like he doesn't want to do it, he just doesn't do it, which I think is awesome. I mean, he talks about how if you're doing something that you don't want to do, especially if it's creating something like music, like it will feel inauthentic to you and it will feel inauthentic to the listener.
I think that's everywhere. If you do something that you're not typically interested in or you're not interested in anymore, it shows.
Yeah. So, and there's one other thing. I think he talked about it I don't know if he talked about it in the book or not, but I'm sure that he did. There's another creator on YouTube that he gets together with every year on the 1st of October, and they make an album in a day. They write all the songs and they basically like book a studio for a day and they go to the studio and they like figure out what they have the whole day and that's it. And so the album, like whatever it's made, you know, a lot of silly songs come out in that because you're like in a rush and you're trying to like make sure you get all the songs or whatever. But a lot of really cool stuff has come out of that. And it's a good practice, I think, in just like creating for the hell of it. So yeah, I mean, that was this book. There's a lot of like tips for creators, tips about business, tips about not getting burnt out, pieces of his life that were really interesting, projects that he worked on that were super interesting. And I absolutely loved it. It was everything I wanted this book to be.
Here's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
How do you make your own rules?
That is $1 million question. I mean, I think that comes into it when he was basically don't let others influence what it is that you want to do.
Don't pre-critique.
Right. You don't
produce what you want to produce.
Produce what you want to produce. Be true to yourself and what your interests are. And if you're interested in really weird, random noises or whatever, like, and that's what kind of music you want to create, then do it. Right? Like, don't create something that you don't enjoy just for the sake of.
And then when you pour your passion and your heart into what you really want to do and you post it on the internet and you don't get any views or listens to, then you give up and feel bad because you produced yourself.
I am so glad that you brought up the internet and social media. He talks about that. And that was one of my most appreciative chapters of this book actually was his chapter on the social media. He gets super burned out by social media very, very quickly, as do I.
I don't have social media and I'm burnt out by social media.
Yeah, I chronically wish I didn't have it. So and people who know me on social media, like, I'm there for a very specific reason. And I love the community there that I'm a part of. I wish that there was a way to interact with those people outside of Facebook, but it's, you know, a rare disease and that's where people congregate. I think I get burnt out really easily. And I think there's a lot of studies on mental health and social media use, and it's definitely a struggle for me. Like, I do better if I just didn't have my phone, I think I would be like much more mentally capable of creating and feeling rested. And, you know, like you're just bombarded by notifications, whether it's like a text message or a phone call or like a app reminding you that it fed your cat, or, you know, there's just constantly notifications that are coming into our lives. And I think it's very distracting and difficult to interact with the space that you're in when there's a space that you're not inside of that is reminding you of its existence.
Go full circle back to the Olivetti episode.
Right. Yes.
Editor Jake here, reminding you that if you like this content, like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications.
You know, there's another creator that I'm thinking of at the moment, Mumbo Jumbo. Mumbo Jumbo is a Minecraft creator, but he's also a filmographer.
Oh, cool.
So he films commercials and produces them and everything. And I relate to him in a lot of ways because he also sort of like eats a lot and has like a thing with food, and I have a thing with food. So he has a thing with things, right? Sort of almost an addictive, like obsessive personality like you and I have.
Yeah.
But he turned off internet on his phone. So he gets internet on his phone like 5 minutes a day or something. And he described a paradigm where he's out producing and recording and everything. And someone's asking, oh, how do I do this specific thing? And he's like, I don't know. And they're like, can you look it up? And he says, I don't have internet on my phone. They're like, why do you have a phone?
So people can contact me in emergencies and I can contact them.
Yeah. So it's funny that, different creators have different techniques for managing exactly what this is, right? Which is almost like overwhelming.
Yeah. It's like it's just too much stimulus. It's too much stimulus.
Yep.
So I hope to be like, it helped me feel more confident about being more intentional with that this year. And it just so happens that I read that book at the end of last year. It wasn't intentional, like I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do with the new year. But I did, I do have a rare condition and I need access to a phone pretty much at all times in case I need to dial 911. So that's been a challenge on like how to navigate that when I need space from technology, but I also need it with me all the time. So I have a watch now that has cell service on it, and I'm planning to turn all the notifications basically off sometimes and leave my phone at home so that I still have the way to call 911, but then I can still get that mental space from technology that I need in order to create. Because I've got a lot of stuff I want to create, and this book was really inspiring for me.
Yeah,
to
that's
get
awesome.
me going. Yeah. Anything about this book that you want to know?
No, I think though that I am going to read this book.
Yes.
Yeah, because as an aspiring creator with a podcast called By Its Cover, by the way, you should go listen to it.
Which you're listening to now.
Yeah. People are pouring out information on the internet about how to create long-term marathon create, so sprint create.
Yeah.
So it's good. I think this is a healthy book. I don't like the internet, so I think a book like this is good for me anyway.
Right.
It just reaffirms my beliefs that the internet is bad. And I like to read and consume content that's tailored specifically to what I already think. I think that's really healthy for me.
You're hilarious. He's over there silently laughing.
Don't challenge my beliefs.
Stay out of my echo chamber.
Yeah, I only want this guy. You know what? This book sounds like it fits in my echo chamber.
Okay. I don't have the physical copy anymore. I finally returned it.
That's okay.
But I can't wait for you to read it. And maybe, if you're someone who loves somebody who creates, maybe you listen to this book too, or read this book too, to help you understand like how creative, how the job works. So yeah, it was cool. It was really cool.
Nice.
All right. Well, that's it.
All right.
What's
Thanks
our next
everyone
book?
for listening. The next book that we're going to talk about is The Vela.
The Vela.
Yeah, The Vela.
Okay, let's do it.
All right.